Hello, everybody. Welcome. Ooh, apparently we have Santa hats now. That was quick. Phoenix 4, hello. Shadows of Life, it's good to see you. Hi, Tentarlus. I love the hello bees. It's time. It has taken me almost 3 years to get to this point. My very first ever stream was December 26th of 2000, and it was Ultima 1. And the whole point of doing the Ultima series was to get to this game that we're starting today, Ultima Worlds of Adventure 2, Martian Dreams, that I started playing when I was a kid on pirated. They were copies of somebody else's copy of the game. I had photocopies of the rulebook, or of the like photocopies of the instruction manual, and copies of 5 1/4 floppies. And I played a little bit of it and never really got anywhere, and then got a computer upgrade and no longer had a 5 1/4 floppy drive, and so couldn't finish the game. And I have waited since like the mid 90s to finally play this game. So I'm excited. Hi, Elixir. Shadows. Only ever played Ultima 6. So this game is the same game engine as Ultima 6. Yeah, they do just look like they're holding the hat. Anyway, so we're probably going to start the same way that we started the last game, which was Savage Empire, by looking at the books, because there are multiple like manual type books, but they're narrative and give background for the game. So that's where we're going to start today. But I do hope to get through them quickly enough that we can actually launch and play the game. Also, when I got it off of GOG, I don't even know if it's still available. It was free, but then there was like a date like a year ago or so where they were like, if you want this, you need to download it now because it's going away for both Savage Empire and Martian Dreams. So I'm not sure if it's still available, because it was officially re-released via GOG in 2012. But when I go to GOG, I can see it because I have it. I don't know if it's still available or not, but it was free. I'm also sipping on instant espresso with oat milk because I just needed a caffeine boost. So, but yes, I'm very excited to start with this game. Also, of course, all of the strikes are ended as far as the entertainment industry, so I feel perfectly good wearing my Strange New Worlds hat, which is red and felt appropriate for going to Mars. Anyway, what does everybody have going on this weekend? Feel free to, comment, share. I'd love to know. But I'm going to bring up, I'm going to try and bring up the things so that I can actually like start, because I'm excited. And I've waited so long. It's been 84 years. Watching Desert Bus for Hope. Oh, that's a charity thing, right? I think somebody mentioned that last week. I must look. I don't know much about this, so I'm now looking, because what is Desert Bus for Hope? Started in 2007 by internet sketch comedy group Loading Ready Run, combines video games and tedium to benefit charity. World's longest running internet-based fundraiser. Raised more than $9 million for Child's Play over its 14-year history. Cool. Desert Bus is a mini game from the never-released Sega CD game Penn and Teller's Smoke and Mirrors, challenging the player to drive a listing unreliable virtual bus on an endless 8-hour-long strip of highway between Tucson, Arizona and Las Vegas, Nevada. Widely regarded to be the worst video game ever made. We play it for as long as donations come in order to keep things interesting for our viewers. We have live and silent auctions, giveaways, and contests, celebrity guests, and a lot of silliness. Amazing. We may need to raid over if they're somewhere on Twitch. We may have to raid into there at the end. Ooh, Diwali and house cleaning. Kind of want to play Martian Dreams now too. But probably just more Factorio. Factorio looks fun. I have to watch people play Factorio, because I know that I would spend the money, I would buy it, and then I would play it once and never again. I just know that about me and that type of game. So, is there a Twitch channel? I wonder. Shadows? I will bookmark that for end of stream. I'm gonna go follow them now, because that sounds awesome. It's currently offline. So maybe not today, but I have bookmarked it. I have followed them. So if they're ever online, they will be an option. Okay. Let's see. Before you see the map. That way? That way? I don't know. I can't tell. That way. The map of Mars. Oh, 2 o'clock Pacific today. Excellent. Because that will be before my stream ends. So you get to lurk and work. Pesky Monday deadline. No! The game comes with this wonderful reference card for IBM PC and 100% compatibles. So to start, we need to read Getting Started. And then in our DOS menu, in our DOS prompt, we need to type cd/Martian to change to the Martian Dreams subdirectory. And after selecting the game subdirectory, type Martian, enter to begin. Oh, I love instructions from back in the day, and the fact that they still distribute it with the game. Of course, It's just pre-installed via DOSBox thanks to GOG, but introductory sequence. Classic computer instructions. Instructions on using the mouse. This game is from 1991. Martian Dreams allows you to use a mouse and/or keyboard during play. All movement and icon selections can be handled using either of these devices. For the exact uses of each device during gameplay, refer to the appropriate section below. If you use a mouse, bear in mind the following general rules. The left mouse button is the select or do it button. The right mouse button can be used to select a shortcut command so that a common command is activated whenever the right button is clicked. This is new. The right mouse button does something? This is an advancement. We're using the same game engine as Ultima 6 and Savage Empire, but neither of them had right mouse button functionality. The mouse pointer changes shape depending on where it is on the screen. Contextual pointers. On the map, the pointer is a hand indicating your direction of travel. In the status display and command levers sections of the screen, the pointer changes to a magnifying glass. If you select a command that requires a location, the mouse remains a magnifying glass even on the map. The mouse changes to a pocket watch in the message display. Step 1, get a cat. Step 2, who knows? Step 3, profit? Exactly. Nice to see that we are all on the same wavelength. Layout of the screen. This should be familiar if you've seen my Ultima 6 or Savage Empire playthroughs. Tiny window of being able to look at things. Much too small, but it is what it is. Time of day, map, command levers, with keyboard commands A, T, L, G, D, M, U, and B for attack, talk, look, get, drop, move, use, and combat. Combat is B, not C, B. Status display, health points, message display. The message display. At the lower right of the screen is the message display. All text describing things you see and hear, as well as the results of your actions, are shown here. When a message is too long to fit on the scroll, a flashing downward pointing arrow appears at the bottom of the display. To view the rest of the message, press the spacebar or position the cursor in the message display and click the mouse. When the game is waiting for your keyboard input from you, a tiny Mars orbited by its 2 moons appears at the end of the current line. I haven't looked at this game in, 30 plus years at this point? Oh, I'm gonna love this. This is gonna be so good. Status display. If you click on a character's name, you get stats, strength, dexterity, intelligence, HP, health maximum, level, and experience points. I wonder if there's gonna be magic. There was magic in Ultima 6. There was limited magic in Savage Empire. I don't remember if there's any magic. In fact, the only thing I really remember about this game is that you needed triox. Doing room design for character, realized I forgot if they would want to change their bathroom. I have no idea exactly what you mean, but room design in RPG, I'm assuming. Generally, bathrooms get forgotten. I always love it when like a sci-fi show or something like that actually remembers that bathrooms need to exist. Inventory display. All of this is relatively familiar. Readied items, carried items, encumbrance. Below the readied item figure are two measures of encumbrance. E shows the weight of items you currently have equipped. I is the total weight of entire inventory compared to the maximum weight you could possibly carry. I will refer to this again in future. I'm gonna skip through a lot of this because we know most of this. Let's see. We basically, because this is the third one running on the same engine, we've got a fairly standardized set of controls now. Control S to save, Control R to restore the last save, Control Q is quit, but I always forget that and just end up exiting. Control A to toggle the music on and off. Control Z, sound effects on and off. Function keys. I didn't know that. Okay, cool. So we've got a couple of books. We have Mysteries of the Red Planet, we have Time Travel, and we have the Clue Book. The Clue Book we won't look at today because that is literally a published walkthrough that was a supplement you could buy. Thank you. Context. Everyone on story I'm doing design their rooms only remember about the bathroom doing a room for a traveling character and thought she would want a nice bath and realized I haven't thought about bathroom for anyone else. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, December 1895 or May 1895. This will be where we start. May 1895, Mysteries of the Red Planet by Dr. Johann Spector, which, if you had, if you followed during Savage Empire, Johann Spector was like the big bad, but also not. So the fact that Johann Spector is now here might seem bad. I'm trying to find my zoom tool. Hang on. Brarg. I just want to zoom. This, yes. Okay. We glanced at this last week, but I'm going to do it again because this is like a new recording. Plus, I don't remember. I write these words aboard a colossal bullet rocketing from the Earth to Mars. Wondrous as this is, and it is, I assure you, quite wondrous. I am even more amazed by the fact that it is the year 1895. Tesla, yes, the noted scientist of years past, Nikola Tesla, is unsure how long the voyage will take, so I have decided to pass the time recording what mankind circa 1895 knows of our destination, Mars. How I came by this information is a story in itself. Scientists have long suspected that Mars was capable of supporting intelligent life. As early as 1877, Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli mapped nearly 80 canali crisscrossing the Martian surface. Canals that he said couldn't possibly be the work of chance. Among the scientists who followed in Schiaparelli's footsteps was an American, Percival Lowell. who, in the early 1890s, began studying the canals and other features of Mars. Remarkably, no late 20th century sources record the fact that Lowell did more than study the red planet from a distance. In 1893, he constructed a giant space cannon to send an expedition there. When the cannon accidentally discharged ahead of schedule, with several notable figures of the day aboard, most observers agreed that the explosion must have vaporized the huge bullet ship within, killing the passengers instantly. Luckily, the extraordinarily inventive Nikola Tesla, one of Lowell's associates on the space cannon project, remained optimistic about the fate of those aboard the craft. As planned, Tesla went ahead with the construction of a system of reflectors, which would allow him to flash Morse code messages to the expedition, which had, in fact, crash-landed on the red planet. Lowell set up a matching system of mirrors and was able to send messages about what he and the other explorers discovered on Mars. Having read through the transcripts of Lowell's messages, I find myself puzzled. The Mars he described in his messages is so very different than the one we of the late 20th century know. What could have changed the planet so in just 100 years? How could the Mariner and Viking spacecraft have missed such clear evidence of Martian life? I must know the answers to these questions. Perhaps we will uncover them during our explorations. It seems likely that Lowell himself knows the answers, but he is either unwilling or unable to tell us. His Morse code messages ended abruptly not long after the first expedition landed on the red planet. Why they ceased, we do not know, but cease they did. The information in this journal is therefore incomplete. Still, I will endeavor to record all that mankind knows of Mars. The facts, if facts they be, may prove invaluable to my fellow space travelers in the days and weeks following our landing on Mars. Planetary data and geography. Though details have changed, much of what 20th century man knows of the red planet still appears to be accurate in 1895. Mars is the fourth planet from the Sun. The Martian day lasts 24 hours, 37 minutes. Its year is 687 Earth days long. Its elliptical orbit takes Mars as close as 128 million miles to the Sun and as far away as 155 million miles. Its distance from Earth ranges from 40 million miles to 250 million miles. The diameter of Mars is 4,222 miles at the equator, but only 4,195 miles through the poles. Its mass is significantly lower than that of the Earth. The gravitational pull of Mars is, therefore, 60% lower than that of Earth. For this reason, Mars loses hydrogen and oxygen, the components of water, at a rate equivalent to 60,000 gallons of water a day. Another interesting effect of Mars's weak gravity is that escape velocity is only 11,214 miles per hour, far less than the 25,000 miles per hour required to escape the confines of Earth. Basins, craters, and planitia. Overall, Mars has suffered neither more nor less from meteor and asteroid strikes than the other inner planets. Still, Mars's proximity to the asteroid belt has resulted in periodic bombardments that are especially heavy. 16 impact craters with a diameter of 150 miles or greater have been clearly identified. These large, flat basins are called planitia. The Argyre planitia, approximately 350 miles across, is surrounded by mountains. Passage through these mountains is thought to be all but impossible. The basin-like areas of central Mars are somewhat different than Hellas, Argyre, and the other large impact basins. The central planitia are believed to be lava plains created long ago by the eruption of the Tarsus volcanoes. Caverns and canyons. The surface of Mars is marred by countless crevasses, chasms, and fossae, miles long, trough-like ditches. The system of canyons we of the late 20th century call Valles Marineris is 1,550 miles long, 125 miles wide at its widest point, and 2.2 miles deep at its deepest. It dwarfs Earth's magnificent Grand Canyon, 280 miles long, 18 miles wide at its widest point, and a little more than a mile deep. In fact, the Valles Marineris would extend all the way from Chicago to California. The careless explorer could easily find himself lost in the twisting passages of this magnificent valley. Noctis Labyrinthus, at the western edge of the Valles Marineris system, is a complex maze of interconnecting channels. 3 smaller, though no less maze-like chasms link Noctis Labyrinthus with Coprates Chasma. We must be careful to map these areas carefully should we be forced to explore them in the course of completing our mission. Which I take to mean we will definitely be forced to explore them in the course of completing our mission. Amazingly, Valles Marineris is itself part of a system of canyons 2,800 miles long, 435 miles wide at its broadest point, and over 4 miles deep. This canyon system would stretch all the way across the United States. Unlike Earth canyons, which are carved by running water, Martian canyons often appear closed at both ends, meaning water could not have flowed into or out of them. On the other hand, the equatorial regions of Mars are marked by what are generally agreed to be dry riverbeds. Many of the canyons of Valles Marineris spill out into these dried riverbeds. No one knows how the canyons of Mars were really formed. Perhaps our expedition can solve this fascinating Martian riddle. In addition to canyons, Mars is riddled with underground tunnels and passages, some natural, others carved out eons ago by the sentient Martian race. Some of these tunnels are home to Martian wildlife, while others lead to underground factories. See below. Here again, the watchword for would-be Martian spelunkers would be caution. Accurate maps may be all that stand between survival and certain death. Dust storms. Dust is the most common feature of the Martian surface. Small particles are often wafted aloft, while larger particles picked up by the wind roll and bounce along the ground. Extreme temperature contrasts, particularly near the poles and in the Hellas region, create violent winds, up to 280 miles per hour, and raging dust storms. Tornado-like conditions are common and quite deadly, often whipping the sandy surface of Mars to a stinging frenzy. Flying dust often blots out the entire surface and blinds the unwary explorer. Lowell reports that the only thing to do if one spots a Martian dust storm is to run away, seek shelter as quickly as possible. Ice caps. Mars is devoid of surface water. Most of the water that does exist is locked up in huge ice caps at the poles. The North Pole is largely composed of water ice, while the South Pole is a combination of water and frozen carbon dioxide. Lowell theorized that the Martians melted small portions of the polar ice masses to fill their canals and irrigate the equatorial region. Gargantuan towers located near the North Pole appear to have been part of an elaborate system for filling the canals, but the rigors of polar exploration stymied the 1893 expedition's efforts to investigate. Mountains and volcanoes. Mars features some of the tallest and most rugged mountains and volcanoes in the known universe. The volcanoes of Mars are noteworthy for reasons other than their prodigious height. They appear to have been formed from iron-rich basaltic lava. The possibility exists that Mars may one day provide much of mankind's iron ore and steel. Just north of the equator is the Tarsus Bulge, a raised plain some 5 miles high and as far across as the United States. Tarsus boasts some of the highest points in the solar system. Olympus Mons is the tallest volcano known to exist, 90,000 feet high and well over 350 miles across. By contrast, Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on Earth, is only 29,000 feet high. 3 slightly smaller volcanoes, Asclepius Mons, Pavonis Mons, and Arzia Mons, each just 6 miles high, sit atop the Tarsus Bulge in a diagonal line southeast of Olympus. The Elysium Bulge rises 2.5 miles above the surface and features somewhat smaller volcanoes than Tarsus. Only 3 of the Elysium Mountains are as much as 93 miles across. The tallest of them, Elysium Mons, stands 5.5 miles high. Albortolus and Hecate's Tolus, nearby, are a bit smaller. I'm a little excited. I'm enjoying saying the names of all of the like geographical features of Mars. I don't know. I like Mars. Fortunately for us, none of the volcanoes of Mars appear to be active. Human survival on Mars. The hard facts on the preceding pages appear to have changed little during the 20th century. The same cannot be said of other aspects of Mars. Though not as wild and fantastic as Edgar Rice Burroughs imagined in his John Carter books, Mars is far from the dead planet known to modern science. Percival Lowell theorized that Mars was in the process of cooling and losing its atmosphere, but it was not yet completely dead. His trip to the red planet appears to have proved his theories. Mars... Shadows. The Tarsus bulge smirks. Oh dear. Mars, circa 1895, is capable of supporting life. Native life forms abound, and mankind can, with difficulty, survive the planet's harsh conditions. Among the dangers we can expect will be intense cold and an atmosphere far thinner and lower in oxygen than Earth's. Cold. The Martian surface temperature varies with the location, the season, and the time of day. The astronomers of the late 20th century report temperatures as low as minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit and as high as 90, with a typical range of minus 22 to minus 112 degrees. Curiously, Lowell found Mars to be significantly warmer, though still dangerously cold. The most hazardous time is between the hours of 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. We must be sure to set up camp during these hours and consider remaining in an insulated tent until daylight. We also have a supply of heavy clothing to keep us warm. Interestingly, when I lived in Minnesota, there were days where it was colder where I was living than it was in the summertime portions of Mars. So I've officially survived temperatures colder than summer on Mars. Anyway, oxygen. The atmosphere of Mars is much thinner than that of Earth. By the 1990s, it was well established that the atmospheric pressure on Mars was just 1% that of Earth. However, the Mars explored by Lowell seems far more hospitable than modern science would have us believe. Still, we will soon land on a planet just barely capable of sustaining life. We must anticipate reduced endurance, at the very least, when we disembark. The Lowell expedition discovered a substance called oxium that makes life on Mars far more pleasant. The discovery of the gooey, foul-tasting, life-giving substance was pure luck. An old miner named Cooter McGee, gasping for breath and half mad from lack of oxygen, happened to stumble into a cave littered with geodes emitting air. When he broke open one of the geodes, he found a blue gelatin within. Despite the horrid odor, he popped a wad in his mouth and began to chew. The taste was awful, but each bite released a bit of oxygen. He knew in an instant that he held the key to mankind's survival on Mars. He dubbed the substance oxium, and it quickly became both a necessity of life and the stranded expedition's primary form of currency. It was traded for all manner of foodstuffs, minerals, objects, and Martian artifacts. He who has oxium is assured of both health and wealth. Cooter McGee. And yes, your money is also what you need to breathe. Flora and fauna. As recently as the late 1800s, Mars teemed with life. As dangerous as the cold and lack of oxygen may be, the most serious threat to human life on Mars is the danger posed by these decidedly alien and often hostile creatures. According to Lowell's reports, there is little difference between those Martian life forms described as flora and those we would call fauna. All Martian life appears to fall into one of two categories. There are plant-like creatures, dubbed plantimals by Lowell, and worm-like creatures. All plantimals grow from seeds, spending at least a portion of their youths rooted in the ground. When seedlings near maturity, pods appear on the plant. Within each pod, a new plantimal grows. The pods grow quite large and eventually burst, releasing fully grown creatures. While the pods are growing, plantimals derive nourishment from the ground, just like earth plants, but they also acquire something more. Plantimals are capable of extracting species-specific information from the soil in which they're planted. In other words, the instincts of members of the seedling's species that have died in the vicinity become part of the seedling's own makeup. Each youngster acquires the wisdom of its predecessors. In the case of most wandering plantimals, little knowledge is passed on. In the case of sentient Martians, the benefits of passing along multi-generational racial knowledge were dramatic. Note that the red pods growing on some adult creatures are edible seed pods. Fruit. A friend of mine had a website which would tell you if Mars or Minneapolis was colder. Yeah, because there are definitely many times that Minneapolis is colder than Mars. And Minneapolis isn't even that far north. Note that the red pods growing on some adult creatures are edible seed pods. Fruit. The seeds are scattered when a piece of fruit falls from its host creature and bursts, allowing the seeds to be blown about by the Martian winds. Seeds can also be spread when herbivorous creatures pluck and eat the fruit of other creatures, in a curious blurring of the distinction between carnivore and herbivore. The indigestible seeds pass through the creature when it eliminates solid waste. Eventually, the seeds take root and the cycle begins again. The worm-like creatures differ dramatically from plantimals in appearance, habitat, and behavior. They are often shelled and generally avoid the extreme conditions of the Martian surface, living well protected beneath the surface. Worms are almost always aggressive. The unexplained disappearance of some members of the 1893 expedition led to rumors of the existence of mysterious, horrible, and deadly Martian creatures. Whether Mars is home to unidentified creatures and whether they are plant or worm is, as yet, a mystery. Here is a listing of all creatures known to exist on Mars. The list may not be complete, and further investigation is definitely in order. Air squid. No earthly equivalent exists for this, perhaps the strangest and most surprising of Martian creatures. The carnivorous air squid is a remarkable combination of hawk, squid, and jellyfish. It floats, seemingly harmless, through the sky, its body suspended below a distended bag filled with hydrogen gas. Blessed with keen eyesight, it can spot prey at great distances. When it finds a victim, the air squid drops in vicious, gravity-aided attack. Sharp teeth, a tearing beak, and grasping tentacles make the air squid a hideous and effective enemy. Not surprisingly, the first expedition reports no sightings underground. The air squid seems willing to float anywhere prey is to be found. There is no place on the Martian surface free of these deadly creatures. Ammonoid. This primitive snail-like creature dwells exclusively in the dank, dark Martian underworld. Its spiky, thorned shell provides ample protection against attack. Its tentacles allow it to grasp prey, but the real danger posed by the ammonoids is the burning acid secreted from suckers on the lower tentacle surface. Bushalow. The plains areas are home to this bison or buffalo-like herbivore. Herds of bushalow can generally be found near the wandering forests, feasting on the small plants found in and around the woods. Though normally sedate, these massive hippopotamus-sized creatures are easily provoked. The charge of a bushalow, wood-like tusks clacking, is something to behold from a distance. The best advice that can be given is to give these creatures alone, or to leave these creatures alone unless it is absolutely necessary to disturb them. Bushrat. Here is a curious anomaly. one of the few plantimals to be found both above and below ground. These rat-like scavengers... yeah, Phoenix, let me make sure that you won't get... Cool, you should be able to drop the link now. I don't remember if you're on the, like, list of regulars to where you wouldn't get booped for a link, but you should be able to drop the link now. Thank you. Hi, Galara. How these rat-like scavengers survive without the light of the sun, so necessary to other plants, is a mystery. Perhaps it is akin to earth saprophytes, non-photosynthesizing plants that survive on decaying organic matter. Bush rats can be found everywhere, feeding on the remains of dead worms and the kills of surface-dwelling carnivores. Small, quick, and blessed with razor-sharp teeth and claws, bush rats are surprisingly dangerous when provoked. Canal worm. And no human has ever seen one of these creatures, but several circular tapestries found in the Martian cities depict what Lowell believes to have been huge canal-dwelling worms. Several features are immediately apparent. They had huge maws, full of row upon row of shark-like teeth. They must surely have been quite ferocious, attacking anything that moved on or near the canals. And they were large enough to swallow a man whole. Perhaps it is a blessing that the canals are empty and mankind need never fear these awesome beasts. Cave worm. Unlike its distant relative, the extinct canal worm, cave worms are quite real and quite deadly. These glowing, shelled cave dwellers can grow to lengths up to 10 feet, but a spitting attack makes them a threat at far greater distances. Once prey comes within reach, a cave worm uses grasping tentacles to squeeze the life from its victims. Like many Martian creatures, the cave worm secretes a burning acid through its skin. Victims are, in essence, rendered down to liquid, which the mouthless worm absorbs through its skin. Creeper. This rootless, leafy vine is the above-ground equivalent of the cave worm. Its natural habitats are the mountainous regions of Mars, though it will travel as far as necessary to find food. It squirms about the surface and attacks by wrapping itself around its victims and suffocating them. The creeper tends to be shy, attacking only when requiring one of its infrequent feedings, but it can respond viciously to provocation. Read the captioning. Canal worms, large enough to swallow a manhole. Creeping cactus. Among the odder Martian creatures, this hybrid of cactus and sea urchin moves by inflating its rear pods and deflating the ones ahead, pushing it slowly across the surface. This is probably a variation on the flight mechanism used by the air squid, but the creeping cactus is too heavy to get off the ground. Despite their weight, the strong Martian winds often send creeping cacti tumbling across the plains like tumbleweed. Unlike tumbleweed, however, the creeping cactus has pointy spines that can inflict surprisingly serious damage. Just the opening to the hole or the entire volume of the cavern it leads to? Given the descriptions of the worms on Mars, I would assume the second one, Galara. Glowworm. Ooh, glowworms. These can't possibly be menacing, right? Though similar in appearance to their cousins, the rockworms, glowworms are quite harmless. Found only in the maze-like underground passages of Mars, these shy creatures shrink into their shells at the approach of any creature larger than a bushrat. For reasons we can hardly guess, glowworms usually cluster at points where passageways curve or reach a dead end. Underground explorers quickly come to consider the creatures their friends, for, as their name indicates, they glow quite fiercely. Whether this display is designed to scare away would-be attackers, to blind underground predators used to the dark, or to accomplish some other unknown goal, is a subject worthy of further study. hedgehog. This belligerent, mid-sized carnivore fills the ecological niche of earth wolves. Woody tusks, sharp fangs, and thorns that can be sent flying through the air make the lone hedgehog quite formidable. Unfortunately, they often travel in packs, making them even more of a threat. A group of hedgehogs can take down a bushalow with ease, and can even give a sexteliger a hard time. Be ever alert for hedgehogs. They range far and wide and can be found anywhere on the planet. This game, I just love the world building in it. I'm so excited that I'm finally here and I get to play this, and I love the creativity of it. Like the plantimals and the Victorian era launch to Mars, just the whole story. I'm really excited because I never ever got to finish this game. I don't know how it progresses, and I'm really excited. The only thing I really remember is that I kept running out of air. That's all I remember about this game. I'm out of my espresso concoction. I'll drink a hydrating beverage instead. But thank you for the self-care, Elixir. Jumping bean. The rabbit-like jumping bean looks almost comical as it traverses the Martian landscape with a peculiar hopping gait. Don't be deceived by its looks, however, or its herbivorous nature. Beans are quite aggressive. In fact, they're just plain nasty, seemingly for the fun of it. How else do you explain an herbivore that attacks without provocation? A pack of jumping beans is quite dangerous, giving pause even to the carnivores of Mars. An herbivore. I am so excited. And honestly, I wasn't really looking forward to Savage Empire, and I ended up loving it. I was just like, I got one more game to go before I finally get to Martian Dreams. But Savage Empire was also excellent. I would have loved to have seen where they would have gone if they had continued this whole Worlds of Adventure thing past Martian Dreams. Oxyleech. This slug-like underground life form feeds on oxium. Unfortunately, these primitive creatures make no distinction between veins of oxium ore and traveling adventurers with oxium in their packs. The oxyleech has a hideous, toothy mouth opening, but does very little physical damage, preferring to steal oxium and flee before victims can react. Generally found near cave entrances and in ravines, the oxyleech is a disgusting creature, but more a nuisance than a genuine threat. Then no, why? Why would you do that? They brought back the gremlins from early Ultima, who would steal your food. They just gave them a new name and had them steal your oxygen instead. They were honestly the most frustrating enemy in all of early Ultima, the gremlins. Plantelope. The gazelle-like plantelope may remind explorers of its smaller cousin, the jumping bean. The third Worlds of Ultima would have been set in Arthurian legends. That would have been amazing. This is like when one of my rangers wasn't allowed to adopt some rust monsters because her party insisted they're gonna eat our stuff. Yeah. Normally docile, it tends to be shy, choosing to flee rather than fight in almost every case. The plains are its customary feeding grounds, though herds of plantelope have been seen leaping goat-like in the mountainous areas of Mars. I mean, come on. They invented plantelope and planther. This is freaking planther. Fast, agile, and deadly, the planther is at the top of the plantimal food chain. Though it rarely attacks the larger herbivores, a hungry specimen of the breed can chase down a sexteliger with some difficulty. Planthers tend to be loners, sticking to the mountainous regions they love, but they move into the plains areas and travel in small prides during pollination season. Pod devil. I'm sure that the pod devil is just cuddly and not dangerous at all. Yep. Here is a creature with no earthly equivalent. 3 times during the Martian year, the mysterious pod devil blooms. Anywhere from 5 to 30 pods appear on each mature adult. Within each pod, a young devil begins to grow. If left alone, the pods drop to the ground and a fully grown pod devil emerges. If the mother plant is disturbed before the babies reach full maturity, a variable number of pods burst, releasing immature and quite vicious devils. The young are bipedal, frog-like whirlwinds of teeth and claws. So they're Warner Brothers' Tasmanian Devil, but frog. They have been reported to attack from a distance by hurling small stones, an indication of relatively high intelligence. If one of the prematurely released young dies, a new pod devil plant grows on the spot, thus assuring the continuation of the species. Oh my! Plantelope fills the same ecological niche as a cantaloupe. Entirely plausible. Proto-Martian. Though the sentient Martian race became extinct long before man set foot on the red planet, a primitive relative managed to survive, though nowhere near as intelligent as their ancient cousins. The omnivorous Proto-Martians are clearly the top of the heap among the remaining plant creatures. For the sake of comparison, think of Proto-Martians as somewhere between gorillas and human cavemen in intellect. Alone among plantimals, the Proto-Martians travel in bands and use crude weapons, sticks, hurled rocks, and so on. They generally live near the bases of mountains, seeking the shelter of caves. They have also been spotted roaming the plains, living in crudely constructed shelters. Be warned that Proto-Martians are not intelligent enough to reason with. Consider them clever, dangerous animals. Rockworm. These gigantic tube worms live coiled up under the earth with only a hard, slime-covered tube visible at the surface. The tubes are made of a caustic material regurgitated by the worm. This same acidic ooze. Puddleglum! Hi, Puddleglum! Welcome back! New month, new Ultima game! Woo! Welcome back for 25 months. It's great to see you. How are you doing? This same acidic ooze coats and lubricates the rockworm's body, allowing it to emerge with startling speed from its subterranean resting place. The slightest vibration on the surface draws the rockworm out. The speed of its attack, the caustic ooze, and a horrible thorny maw make each rockworm a threat. Making matters worse, rockworms tend to clump together in colonies and can be vicious when provoked. They're best left undisturbed whenever possible. Sand trapper. These large pod-like creatures would appear to be easily avoided. They are completely immobile. Appearances can be deceiving, however. Like the earth insect known as the antlion, or more popularly, the doodlebug, the sand trapper uses the lower portion of its abdomen as a shovel and digs itself a deep conical pit in the loose sand of the plains. Any plantimal, worm, or human who gets too close loses its footing in the loose sand and falls to the bottom, where the creature waits to devour it. Even potential victims who don't fall within reach of the waiting creature have little chance of climbing out as the sand shifts beneath their feet. Escape is made even more difficult by the trapper's grasping, ropey tentacles. Like, I want to play like a full-on RPG in this world. Wow. Like, what a great setting. All in all, the Sand Trapper is a devouring machine. Little more than a huge mouth lined with razor-sharp teeth, a spitting attack can send a man tumbling down the slopes of its trap and into its waiting jaws. Don't be lulled into a sense of false security by its immobility. The Sand Trapper is quite deadly. I mean, that is just... oh gosh, what was it called in Star Wars? I can't think of the name of it, but it's the mouth in the sand in Star Wars, essentially. What was that called? My brain will not give it to me. Oh, we finally get to know what a Sarlacc. Thank you. Yes, Elixir. It's very much the Sarlacc pit. The Sarlacc, yeah. Sexteliger. Here is another Martian plantimal with no earthly equivalent. Yeah, so this Sand Trapper is essentially a Sarlacc. Native to Mars, of course. Sexteliger. Here's another Martian plantimal with no earthly equivalent. No other creature encountered by Lowell and the others was considered more dangerous or more malevolent. Even the Planther thinks twice before attacking a fully grown Sexteliger. The six-legged beast can only be described as a carnivorous rhinoceros. A lone Sexteliger is a menace, but one seldom encounters a lone Sexteliger. The creatures travel in herds, killing and devouring anything and everything in their paths. You almost typed it in the work document you're working on. Sarlacc pits. Sarlaccs probably don't belong in recommendation letters. You're correct. Trees. The pod trees are not true plantimals, like the other life forms on Mars, but they are nonetheless worthy of inclusion in a compendium of Martian creatures. Unlike Earth trees, Martian trees are capable of limited movement. For reasons not fully understood by human explorers, the trees clump together in forests and then wander together across the plains of Mars, usually in the vicinity of the canals. Explorers quickly determined that it was not worth their time and energy to map either the location of the forests or the paths through them. The next time they reached an area through which they had passed earlier, the paths had changed, and in some cases the entire forest had moved. Yay, shifting maps. The mystery of the berries. The 1893 explorers sent many coded messages back to Earth. All of them were fantastic, but none were more remarkable than those pertaining to Martian berries. Before the messages stopped, George Washington Carver, noted agriculturalist and one of the members of the 1893 expedition, cataloged many species of immobile, non-sentient plants. At least 3 of these bore fruit, specifically berries. When eaten, these berries reportedly conferred upon the user strange and inexplicable psychic abilities. Here's the magic. Some who used the berries claimed to be able to read minds, clairvoyance, or carry on conversations with inanimate objects, psychometry. Others reportedly gained the ability to move and use objects at a distance, telekinesis. Modern science generally denies the possibility of such powers, but then modern science also denies the existence of life on Mars. Perhaps it would be best to approach the subject of the Martian berries with an open, inquisitive mind. Okay, so we're gonna get psychic abilities in this game. In Savage Empire, there were 3 skulls and 3 types of material, and in combination, the skulls with materials did magic. Like taking the chocolate plant and combining it with the human skull made light. So this Martian berries appear to be like the magic in this game. Are they cranberries, Galara? Martian civilization. The irrefutable evidence of sentient life on Mars leads inevitably to questions about who and what the Martians were. Shadows of Life has struck from the shadows and landed a critical hit. Great job on your stealthing. Welcome back, Shadows. This is so... Look at the Martian. Ah. Wonderful. 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 I need to zoom back out, though. Nope. Nope. Ah, control. I have gained control. The Santa hat on the cranberries. That's all stream elements. I just have it enabled so that it will put festive hats on at appropriate times of the year. It was witch hats, and now it's Santa hats. Let's see. The irrefutable evidence of sentient life on Mars leads inevitably to questions about who and what the Martians were. What was their lifestyle? How advanced was their civilization, and how was it structured? After the members of the 1893 expedition determined that they could, in fact, survive on Mars, George Washington Carver began seeking answers to these questions. All available evidence led Carver to conclude that the one-time masters of Mars were sentient plant creatures. Highly evolved plantimals, if you will. The remains of cities and towns called groves, and the remarkable artifacts found in these settlements indicate a high level of civilization. I like it on the cat. No, feel free, play with the emotes. Life cycle. Like all Martian plantimals, and for that matter, all earthly plants, like sentient the sentient Martians, to be called simply Martians from here on, were born when seeds were planted in the ground, watered, and nourished by sunlight and minerals, and protected from worms and carnivorous plantimals. However, Carver's study of records left by the Martians indicate that they grew to maturity somewhat differently than their non-sentient cousins. First, each Martian plant grew just a single pod, and these pods didn't split open naturally when the creature within reached maturity. In fact, if left on the plant, Martian pods would become overripe, killing the young one within. For that reason, the Martians tended their pods carefully and, using a knife-like implement specifically designed for the job, split the pod open at just the right time, releasing the young male or female Martian. Apparently, Martians had binary gender. The new organism was fully aware, but not fully mature. Were it not for the protection and guidance provided within the walls of the Martian groves, the young could not have survived. The Martian life cycle began with an elaborate sexual ritual involving a male, a female, and a species of now extinct flying worm Carver called the pollinator. The parties involved would gather in a sunny greenhouse in the couple's home grove. The two Martians would kneel across from each other as pollinators fluttered about them. The worms would land on the male, picking up a dusting of pollen, and then land on a ruff of flower-like structures about the female's neck and shoulders. The pollinated flowers eventually grew into seeds which ringed the female like strings of pearls. When the seeds had grown, they were gathered and given to the cultivator, who planted and tended them in a communal plot. Eventually, the seeds grew into seedlings, and then into fully grown plants. The plants grew pods, and the cycle was complete. The existence of communal plots was probably the most telling difference between the Martians and their non-sentient cousins. They tended to settle in a few places and buried generation after generation of their dead in a few precisely defined locations. Seeds planted in these locations acquired knowledge and characteristics not only from the previous generation, but from all generations stretching back many thousands of years. So many dings. Yes. We just got we learned about the birds and the bees for the Martians. The germ of true intelligence was clearly present in the Martians from the very beginning. They, alone among the plantimals, realized the potential benefits of settling in a single location. Still, given what we know of life on Mars, the resulting concentration of racial memory in a single location surely contributed to their dominance of the planet. More like the trees and the bees. Yes. Martian life and social structure. While Carver studied the Martian life cycle, anthropologist David Yellen began a systematic study of the Martian lifestyle as recorded in scrolls and reflected in surviving Martian groves and artifacts. According to Yellen, the secret of Martian success was rootedness. Once a Martian family or group of families settled in an area, it remained there to the benefit of each succeeding generation. Thus, each grove is found today on the same spot it occupied at the dawn of Martian civilization. Martian groves consisted of several homes arrayed around a central grave/nursery plot, the whole protected against nomadic plantimals by a stout wall. The homes were, not surprisingly, made entirely of glass or crystal. In other words, the Martians lived in greenhouses, not unlike the marvelous crystal palaces beloved by the Victorians. The rule among Martians seems to have been one home, one Martian. Since all seeds were planted in a communal birthing plot, there were no families. In a sense, all Martians living in a grove were one family. When a Martian died, its body was carried to the birthing plot and buried there. As the body decomposed, all of its accumulated memories and experiences were, through some unknown mechanism, transferred into the soil to be soaked up by seedlings planted there. Thus, the seedlings acquired the knowledge of all previous generations in that location. David Yellen, I wonder who that could be? Wait. Who? Because that was a name that I didn't immediately recognize. It's who? I don't know. Please share. I love that you have all the inside knowledge. Each Marthan. Yep, they're Marthan now, not Martian. Marthan. Yep. Each Martian birthing plot was tended by the community's cultivator. This Martian held the fate of his community in his three-fingered hands. If the plot were damaged, the development of subsequent generations could be set back severely. If the damage were so great that the community had to move and find a new plot, a small amount of dirt would be collected from the plot and carried to a new location. Martian records indicate that this only rarely resulted in success. Needless to say, the cultivator was held in the highest respect. It refers to David Watson, the real Iolo. Amazing. Assisting the cultivator was the gatherer. The Martian who held this position gathered all the leaf droppings and other plant matter and kept up the community's compost heap. The gatherer was also responsible for bringing the dead to the birthing plot, where their knowledge could be imparted to succeeding generations. Another Martian, the arborist, healed the sick and wounded. This involved taking cuttings, healing diseases, grafting limbs, and so on. Coordinating the activities of these key Martians and seeing to the everyday needs of the citizens of each grove was the agrarian. Think of the agrarian as akin to a human mayor, and you won't be too far off the mark. In addition to internal affairs, this Martian negotiated water rights with other groves and took responsibility for intergrove soil trading. Such trading ensured the widespread dissemination of knowledge and enriched the overall Martian stock. The agrarian also made sure the underground power plants and factories were well maintained, ensuring the continued idyllic existence of Martians on the surface. Martian records indicate that there were once scores of groves. Today, only 4 are intact enough to reveal anything of Martian life, to say nothing of sheltering the members of the 1893 expedition. Olympus, Argyre, Hellas, and Elysium are in surprisingly good repair. Other scattered buildings only hint at the former greatness of Martian civilization. What do you mean vampires, Elixir? Oh my gosh. It looks just like TikTok from Return to Oz. Oh yes, they have to have their dirt with them. Well, if they want to maintain their racial memory, then they do, yeah. Factories, mines, and mechanical men. All of Martian civilization was built on the idea that the groves were inviolate, Edenic, never to be sullied by machinery. I don't know this word. Time to learn. Oh, Edenic. Relating to character or characteristic of the Garden of Eden. So it's not Edenic, Edenic. Got it. The idyllic existence above ground was made possible by moving underground all of the machinery and mining operations that made such a life feasible. Power was generated by scores of hulking steam engines, each as large as the monstrous Corliss engine displayed at the 1876 Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia. Canvas belts conveyed power to a vast array of machines. The material to build and power these machines, iron ore, coal, and other substances, came from colossal mines as grand as any in human history. The steam-powered underground machines must have roared deafeningly in their day, but now they sit idle, waiting for someone to figure out how to restore the power that once drove them. Today, countless years after the death of the last Martian, dirt and grit cover every unprotected surface, and the stench in the factories, power plants, and mines is nearly overpowering. The underground factories and mines are, along with the canals, the most remarkable displays of Martian industrial prowess. The achievement seems all the more amazing when one considers that, like Earth plants, the Martians required sunlight in order to survive. This made underground work taxing and potentially deadly. The Martians solved this problem in a most straightforward, yet astonishing manner. Edenic is good in Scrabble too, pertaining to a paradise. I don't know what's the base score of that in Scrabble? I haven't thought about Scrabble scores in a long time. In order to tend the machines, the Martians created metal surrogates, specialized devices that we of the late 20th century would call robots. Lowell dubbed them mechanical men. The mechanical men vary widely in appearance and, we can only assume, in function. Unfortunately, the underground areas are sufficiently dangerous that Lowell and the others did little investigating. The nature and functioning of the mechanical men remains, therefore, a mystery. Hi, Nauseam! Canals. Incredible as it seems, Schiaparelli and Lowell were right. The canals on Mars are real. Great causeways once carried water from the poles to irrigate the more arid areas. This alone made it possible for the Martians to settle in one place and build their mighty groves. That the canals could also be used to transport Martians and materials from place to place was an added benefit. Their chief purpose was to ensure the survival and continued dominance of the Martian race. Though the canals now stand empty and many mysteries still remain, Lowell was able to determine quite a bit about them. They are all perfectly straight with perfect right angle intersections. Their depth and width make them impassable when empty. Extensible bridges allow travelers to cross. Unfortunately, nearly all of the bridges are retracted and will remain so until and unless we can restore power to the Martian cities. Large switches at the edges of the canals can be used to extend and retract bridges. Curiously, there would appear to be a bit of water below the surface near the canals. Plants can almost always be found growing in the vicinity of the empty waterways. Lowell was able to tell much about the canals by observation, but one question remained unanswered. How were they filled? Robert Perry, noted polar explorer, may have provided the answer. During his trek to the edges of the Martian ice caps, he came across gigantic towers positioned at strategic locations along the edge of the North Pole. Atop each tower was a ruby red lens. It may be that the sun's light focused by the lens melted the ice and channeled water into the canals. This is, however, nothing more than conjecture. Needless to say, the empty canals limit movement on the planet's surface and hinder exploration. The non-functioning switches and extensible bridges do little but frustrate would-be explorers. If there were only some way to restore power to the Martian machinery, then perhaps mankind could explore Mars more fully. It's a 6-letter adjective, so wouldn't be a very useful scorer, but likely to draw a challenge. Oh. Got it. Dream machines. As astounding as the Martian groves, factories, and canals are, nothing excited the members of the 1893 expedition more than the mysterious dream machines. No one is really sure what purpose these devices served, but users reportedly experienced strange, dreamlike visions, hence the name Dream Machine. Nothing more is known about these devices. Among the few machines still functioning when the Lowell expedition arrived on Mars. Shortly after the first reports were beamed to Earth concerning the Dream Machines, Lowell described a breakdown in communication among various groups of humans. The once united expedition degenerated into several bickering factions. Little more is known about events on Mars. No one knows if there is any connection between the Dream Machines and the disintegration of the 1893 expedition. Shortly after these reports reached Earth, communication ended. The Dream Machines appear to be at the heart of several mysteries. We must investigate, but cautiously. Mysterious Red Planet. Having reflected on the messages Lowell sent from Mars, I find myself drawn once again to the remarkable differences between the Mars of Mariner and Viking and the Mars of Percival Lowell. What cataclysm could have wiped all trace of Martian civilization from the face of the Red Planet? What catastrophe would have caused the extinction of so many life forms? We must find out. Glossary. Chasma, canyon. Fossae, ditches. Labyrinthus, network of valleys. Mensa, mesa. Mons, mountain. Montes, range of mountains. Planitia, plain. Planum, plateau. Tolus, hill. Vallis, valley. Plural, valles. Okay, so that is the main game manual. But there's another. Time travel. Use of the Orb of the Moons. By Dr. Johann Spector, December 1895. Ooh, Shadows, enjoy yourself. Forward, December 1895. The story of my trip to Mars began many years in the future, nearly 100 years from now. At the time, I will be, deeply involved in writing an account of my exploits in Aeodon, the alternate dimension dubbed the Savage Empire by that young reporter Jimmy Malone. As I struggled to convey the might and the majesty of the place and its denizens, I received a telegram from the adventurer who calls himself the Avatar. Come quickly, it said. Arriving at his home, I was surprised to learn that he had not, in fact, contacted me at all. Here was a mystery. As we discussed the origin of the mysterious telegram, an odd-looking woman rapped on the door and delivered a package. When we turned to examine the contents, the woman slipped away. Her last words a warning that we held the fate of her people in our hands. The mystery deepened. The contents of the package did little to enlighten us. Inside, we found a map showing the location of a laboratory in the mountains of Colorado, an old photograph, a letter signed Nikola Tesla, and a book ostensibly written by me entitled Time Travel, Use of the Orb of the Moons. The book was, needless to say, the very work I find myself writing now. The photograph was of myself, the avatar Nikola Tesla, Sigmund Freud, and several other historical figures. Though neither the avatar nor I had any recollection of having traveled through time, we agreed that we would be remiss if we didn't investigate. After all, it isn't every day one receives a package from someone long dead. With the mysterious map to guide our way, we soon found ourselves in a long-abandoned lab. The map was genuine. Thus encouraged, we placed the orb of the moons 8 feet in front of us at a heading of 37 degrees, and a time gate appeared. Is this a book that we, the PC, wrote, or someone else? Someone else. So the avatar is the player character. This book is being written by Johann Spector, who was driven mad by the lizard people's machinery in the Valley of Aeodon, and ultimately saved by us. Like, he seemed to be like the big bad villain, but really he was just his mind was negatively impacted by the ancient machinery in the valley, and once we had turned it off, he came back to himself and turned out to not be a bad guy at all. And so now he's accompanying us on this adventure. Spectre is a recurring-ish character in SEMD, Savage Empire, Martian Dreams, and sorta in, what is SI? I don't know what SI, I don't know what that one stands for. But yeah, so he, in Savage Empire, he seemed like the big bad, but ultimately he just wasn't a bad guy at all. Thus encouraged, we placed the orb of the moons 8 feet in front of us at a heading of 37 degrees, and a time gate appeared. The orb, acquired in an earlier venture to the fabled realm of Britannia, was as capable of taking us to the distant past as to fantastic other dimensional worlds. Upon stepping through the gate, we found ourselves in 1895, where we were greeted by none other than Nikola Tesla. History books make no mention of the events Tesla went on to describe. He informed us that the astronomer Percival Lowell had discovered an explosive substance called phlogistonite, capable of propelling a train-sized bullet through space. Serpent Isle, thank you. Based on War Inspector. Yes, phlogiston reference. If you're unfamiliar, in the original Dungeons and Dragons Spelljammer, when they expanded it and there was the crystal spheres, and between the crystal spheres, which were like the different worlds of D&D, between the crystal spheres was a substance called phlogiston, which was highly flammable. And the Spelljammers could traverse through the phlogiston to travel from crystal sphere to crystal sphere. And so that's not how Spelljammer works in 5th edition, like modern D&D, but back when it was first created, phlogiston was the void between the crystal spheres in D&D. So the phlogistonite being here just fits so perfectly. The power of this substance was, in his own words, beyond description. Also, phlogiston, just as a word, like the whole idea of phlogiston is based in alchemy. So it proposed in 1667 by Johann Becker, attempted to explain chemical processes such as combustion and rusting, now collectively known as oxidation. And it stated that phlogistonated or phlogisticated substances contain phlogiston, and that they dephlogisticate when burned, releasing stored phlogiston, which is absorbed by the air. So phlogiston was sort of an element, like in the way it was approached historically. So most familiar with the phlogiston through studying the development of the science of chemistry in college has to do with production of heat. Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, its nature has been lost to the ages. In any event, Lowell had no trouble finding a backer for the construction of a space cannon. William Randolph Hearst, noted newspaper publisher, supplied the funds in exchange for exclusive rights to the story. Discretion dictates that I not reveal the details of Lowell's voyage or the course of events after we would-be rescuers arrived on the Red Planet. One must, after all, reserve some things for lucrative autobiographies. Even scientist adventurers must pay the rent. Suffice to say that the Avatar and I returned safely to Earth. In a very short while, we will return to our own time, but not before I turn this book over to Dr. Tesla so that he may ensure it is delivered into our hands 100 years from now. Note: I must be sure to implore Tesla not to read this journal. Though the details of our journey through time will be revealed in another form at another time, I feel the need to record my thoughts about the historical figures with whom I shared this, the grandest of my adventures to date. I intend to record here not only biographical information through the year 1895, but also the events of the years that followed. Were this information to be revealed to the natives of the 19th century, all of history could be changed forever. Needless to say, our goal in this era, our own past, was not to alter history, but to preserve it, to ensure that everything that had already come to pass in our reality would in fact happen. I hesitate even to consider the consequences of a temporal anomaly, however slight. You've been to Hearst Castle? One of the villains of the musical Newsies, indeed, yes. Companions in adventure. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of our adventure was the company we kept. For among our fellow space travelers were several notable historical figures. I will endeavor to describe them both as they are remembered by historians, at least insofar as I remember my history, and as I came to know them in the flesh. It is difficult to express the thrill of meeting some of history's most famous men and women face to face. Freud, Roosevelt, Edison. These legendary figures are more than just names in history books. They are real flesh and blood people, people whom the Avatar and I, alone among modern men, have had the opportunity to know. The Rescue Mission. Nellie Bly, 1867 to 1922. This investigative reporter for Joseph Pulitzer's New York World has always fascinated me. Here was a liberated, modern career woman in an era when such were few and far between. At a time when women hardly considered careers in journalism, Nellie Bly checked herself into a New York insane asylum to report on patient abuse, went to prison to write about the treatment of inmates, and investigated crooked employment agencies that preyed upon young women. But her greatest claim to fame came in 1889 when she embarked on a round-the-world trip to beat the 80-day record set in Jules Verne's novel, Around the World in 80 Days. She made the trip in 72 days, 6 hours, 11 minutes, and 0 seconds. Miss Bly journeyed to Mars to chronicle the rescue expedition's adventures for her employer, who, by the way, funded the rescue expedition in an attempt to upstage his arch rival, William Randolph Hearst. I am happy to report that Nellie was everything I'd hoped she would be. Resourceful, brave, strong-willed, capable. All in all, a most remarkable person. You can tell they did their homework in researching these actual historical figures. Back when you couldn't just Google stuff. Yeah. Dr. C.L. Blood. Dates of life unknown. Dr. Blood was something of a mystery to me, though Tesla, Freud, and the other would-be rescuers seem well familiar with him and his accomplishments. I had never heard of him before our arrival in 1895. Apparently, Dr. Blood was reviled by the medical establishment of the 1870s for espousing the curative powers of his creation, oxygenized air. The general public cared little about the disdain of Blood's peers. Thousands claimed to have recovered from illness and infirmity after undergoing oxygenized air treatment. Despite his somewhat checkered past and lack of esteem among the leading lights of the medical community, Blood proved a concerned and able doctor, well able to handle the rescue expedition's medical needs. I feel the need to drop a command here. If I can remember what it is. Is it? I don't know. We have one about don't take medical advice from this stream. But I don't remember which command it is. Oh well. Don't take medical advice from this stream. I don't know where it is. Anyway. Is Dr. Blood an actual historical figure? While they've known Dr. Blood was a real person for a while, since this game came out, it was revealed he was a charlatan and peddled fake cures. I mean, seemed very obvious to me that he was oxygenized air was a patent medicine, like a fake cure. If they'd known that at the time, they would have had so much fun with the character. Yeah. But we have a number of resources in our archives about patent medicines, and I've done entire streams about them. So I'm somewhat familiar with the sort of miraculous claims of things like that. And just reading the description of Dr. Blood there, it seemed to fit the bill. Sigmund Freud, 1856 to 1939. Until I learned about the mysterious Martian artifacts dubbed dream machines by the members of the 1893 expedition, I wondered what role Dr. Freud would play among the rescuers. The father of modern psychoanalysis, Freud revolutionized the field of mental health care. His ideas about dream analysis, free association, and the sexual basis of neuroses revolutionized a field that had depended upon hypnosis and electroshock therapy in the treatment of patients. It was shortly after the first reports reached Earth concerning the dream machines that communication from Mars stopped. Freud's expertise allowed him to explain the strange visions produced in those who used the Martian artifacts. Yeah, they found more on him. And the father of modern psychoanalysis, who himself appears to have been very obsessed with sexualizing his parents. Nikola Tesla. I love the little the line art drawings, the illustrations of the people. They're quite good. 1856 to 1943. An unsung genius and unparalleled eccentric, Tesla was one of the late 19th and early 20th century's most innovative electrical engineers and inventors. His greatest achievement was the invention of the AC, alternating current, induction motor, which led to the virtual replacement of DC, direct current, in everyday life. Despite being responsible for this major technological advance, Tesla is usually remembered more for his failed efforts to broadcast electrical power through the air like radio waves. His technological expertise made the rescue expedition possible and proved invaluable in understanding and repairing numerous Martian machines. And of course, it was his time-spanning message that brought us to this place and time. The 1893 expedition. The members of this... I think there are definitely parts of Freud's theories that are not held in the same regard that they were in the past. I don't know if I could characterize it as being largely discredited, but they're... his assertions are not as authoritative as they were considered, I think, at the time that this was written. We've moved a bit further in the study of psychology since then. Oh yeah, definitely based on photos, but the artwork is really well done. The members of the stranded expedition were no less fascinating than their would-be rescuers. Those aboard Lowell's craft when it blasted off from the World's Columbian Exposition represented a veritable who's who of the Victorian era. The year was 1893, and all the world had turned its attention to Chicago, the site of the exposition. The thing about a lot of these pioneers, for lack of a better word, of the science is that much of their impact is getting us to think more critically about the sciences themselves rather than their actual theories, which were often incomplete. That's an excellent point, Puddleglum. Like, Freud, despite how accurate his actual theories end up being as we understand more and more, they popularized the thinking about psychology beyond a very niche group of intellectuals and brought it into the public awareness and led to the modern field even existing. Surely right about some things, but not everything. But yeah, his impact is more bringing it into the public awareness than the specific accuracy of his theories. Beyond the let's lock people in cages variety of yeah. Moving away from that. They couldn't possibly figure out everything if they were the first to figure out anything. That's a great way to put it. Okay. The year was 1893, and all the world had turned its attention to Chicago, the site of the exposition. There's a reason I keep stumbling over the word expedition, and it's because the word exposition is also here. There, ornate edifices housed displays of mankind's greatest achievements. A Ferris wheel, 264 feet in diameter and capable of carrying over 2,000 people at a time, towered over the fair. The world's nations sent emissaries to show off the lifestyles and accomplishments of their peoples. Perhaps the most remarkable attraction stood near the Manufacturers and Liberal Arts Building. There, spectators marveled at Percival Lowell's space cannon, designed to take mankind to Mars. A crew was gathered, A launch date set. A day before the scheduled launch, Lowell gave a tour of his cannon to a select group of fair attendees and workers. Suddenly, the cannon discharged. Some at the scene claimed the explosion had destroyed the bullet within, killing all aboard. Some thought the whole event was a colossal hoax. In fact, the bullet rocketed toward Mars with many of the Victorian era's leading lights aboard. I can't imagine the world without the crucial contributions these people made to the advancement of science, the arts, and government. You will no doubt understand what I mean when you read the list of the missing. Ooh, hi, Stephen. All the world had turned its attention to Chicago. They had it coming. They had it coming. They only had themselves to blame. Sorry. And every time I see the word exposition, even though this is the World's Columbian Exposition, my brain insists on it being the Great American Exposition in Buffalo, because Sondheim's Assassins. All right, here are the list of the missing from the 1893 expedition. Sarah Bernhardt, 1844 to 1923. This French actress was the most renowned performer of her day. Her international tours sold out on every continent on the globe. Her appearance in Queen Elizabeth, 1912, one of the earliest feature-length motion pictures, lent credibility to the fledgling art form. Her theater background proved surprisingly useful in our adventure on Mars. William F. Buffalo Bill Cody, 1846 to 1917, Western scout and hunter. Folk legends have it that he single-handedly killed more than 4,000 buffalo, an heroic feat at the time. With the taming of the West, he turned to show business, leading a troupe of cowboys and Indians in a series of phenomenally successful Wild West shows. He took up with fellow Westerner Calamity Jane on Mars. Definitely a well-known popular figure of the day, a much more problematic figure with modern understanding. Calamity Jane, 1852 to 1903, a frontier woman who eschewed dresses and petticoats for manly clothes. Calamity Jane, born Martha Jane Burke, served as an Army Scout, a Pony Express rider, and an aide to George Armstrong Custer. Calamity is reputed to have been a prostitute and Wild Bill Hickok's mistress, but she refused to discuss this with me. On Mars, she quickly grew tired of the Martian cities and took to wandering the plains with Buffalo Bill. Together, they supplied oxium and other survival items to the city dwellers and planetary explorers. Andrew Carnegie, 1835 to 1919, railroad tycoon and steel magnate who felt that the duty of the rich was to distribute surplus wealth to those who needed it. Toward that end, he set up many charitable and educational institutions and foundations. I was quite surprised at Carnegie's firsthand knowledge of steel and manufacturing. Carnegie was charged with constructing a space cannon on Mars, making a return flight possible. If only more modern executives were as familiar with the nuts and bolts operations of their companies. I don't know, but I feel like this is a very, very fictionalized account of Carnegie. George Washington Carver, circa 1860 to 1943. Born to enslaved parents, Carver fought the odds and turned a lifelong affinity for plants into a career. In 1896, he became head of agricultural research for the Normal and Industrial Institute for Negroes at Tuskegee, Alabama. There, he pioneered multi-crop farming and crop rotation, synthesized over 400 substances from peanuts and sweet potatoes, including dyes, milk, linoleum, glue, soap, flour, oil, paint, ink, butter, coffee, and even synthetic rubber. Thomas Edison once offered Carver a salary of $100,000 to join him at his lab in New Jersey, but Carver turned him down, saying he was needed at Tuskegee. Remarkable, remarkable man. Elixir, thank you for the self-care. Minor fight with dryer, but won because my parents didn't raise a girl who can't fend for herself. Yeah, George Washington Carver is quite a remarkable person. All right, after Carver, we have Marie Curie, 1867 to 1934. This Polish-born French physicist discovered the radioactive properties of radium and polonium. In 1903, she was rewarded with the Nobel Prize for Physics, followed by one for chemistry in 1911. She died of leukemia, no doubt caused by her pioneering research into the nature of radioactivity. Some of the Martian artifacts discovered by Lowell and others were powered by radioactive substances, making her expertise invaluable. I honestly, looking back, I think this game and the manual with it, that, like I said, as a kid, I just had copies of the game on 5 1/4 floppies and photocopies of the book. But the description of these people that's in this book, and honestly, the opening sequence that we'll see when I actually bring the game up, are one of the reasons that I fell so much in love with sci-fi. Like, it really is. This game is one of the reasons that I ended up just really, really loving science fiction. Wyatt Earp, 1848 to 1929. Earp, a genuine American folk hero, was a noted frontier lawman, serving as a policeman in Wichita, Kansas, and later as assistant marshal in Dodge City. Moving to Tombstone, Arizona, Wyatt, his brothers Virgil, Morgan, and James, and Doc Holliday found themselves feuding with the Clanton and McClary brothers, cattlemen who augmented their earnings by rustling. The feud escalated into an all-out war on October 26, 1881, when the Earps and Doc Holliday gunned down Billy and Frank Clanton and Tom McClary in what came to be known as the gunfight at the OK Corral. Earp was acquitted by the courts. My experience with Mr. Earp was limited, and from what I know of him, I must say that doesn't displease me. Yes, everyone is in this game. It's like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, kinda. Thomas Edison, 1847 to 1931. America's most prolific inventor and the first entrepreneurial scientist, Edison was issued over 1,000 patents in his lifetime. He is popularly credited with inventing such history-making devices as electric lights, the phonograph, and the motion picture. I was quite taken aback by the animosity between Edison and Dr. Tesla. Friendly competitors they most assuredly were not. I can only assume Edison saw in Tesla's alternating current motor the demise of direct current, of which he was a leading proponent. One can only wonder what these two geniuses could have accomplished had they been able to work together. Still and all, Edison's engineering expertise proved invaluable in our attempts to understand and repair a variety of Martian machines. You didn't know Ultima had a biographies section? Hikey squared. Yeah, so we're starting a new game. I'm looking at the manuals before we dive in. And this manual, right now, we have the list of people who were lost, who went missing in 1893 when a rocket prematurely blasted off from the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. And then our player character and a follow-up expedition launched 2 years later to Mars to go and try and rescue them. Emma Goldman, 1896 to 1940. Anarchist and proponent of birth control and draft obstruction, Emma Goldman was born in Lithuania and raised in Russia. At 17, she moved to the United States, where she soon became involved with anarchists. Arrested several times for inciting riots, she was convicted of interfering with U.S. preparations for World War I and sent to prison. Deported in 1919, she went to Russia, but disapproved of the Soviet regime and moved on to England and later Canada. Late in life, she took an active role in the Spanish Civil War. Her role in events on Mars is clouded in mystery. William Randolph Hearst, 1863 to 1951. Hearst, a renowned American newspaper publisher and pioneer of yellow journalism, was the financial sponsor of the ill-fated 1893 Mars expedition. Hearst papers were cheap, sensational, and provocative, appealing to the common man in a way no newspaper had before. He and his bitter rival Joseph Pulitzer competed for the minds and pennies of the public. By the end of the 20th century, he was probably best known for his California home, the bizarre San Simeon. It will come as no surprise to those familiar with San Simeon that Hearst became a collector and trader of Martian artifacts, perhaps junk would be a better word, during his stay on the Red Planet. Welcome to my thought train, Wyatt Earp, 1993 film Tombstone. Why Johnny Ringo? You look like someone just walked over your grave. And now you're singing ragtime? Nikolai Lenin, 1870 to 1924. Lenin, born Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, was the most influential communist thinker of his day. The Russian revolutionary and founder of the Bolshevik Party first studied the teachings of Karl Marx in 1889 while a university student. In 1907, 2 years after the failure of the First Russian Revolution, Lenin left the country but continued to struggle to bring Marxism to his homeland from abroad. In 1917, he returned to lead a successful revolution, which left him in charge of a new Soviet government. He led the United Soviet Socialist Republic until his death in 1924. Lenin's dream of a world in which all members of society shared ownership of property and in which wealth was distributed equally found curious expression during his experience on Mars. Percival Lowell, 1855 to 1916. Lowell, an American astronomer and leader of the 1893 expedition to Mars, was born to one of America's oldest and wealthiest families. After graduating from Harvard University, he managed his family's cotton mills and utility companies. For a time, he served as a diplomat, notably in the Far East. Upon learning of the controversy over the Martian canals, he turned a lifelong interest in astronomy into a career. Using his inherited wealth, he built an observatory in Arizona specifically for the observation of Mars. He mapped 184 canals, each so regular that no natural phenomenon could explain their existence. Clear evidence, he thought, that some intelligent life form was responsible. Dark patches on either side of the canals were clearly vegetation, growing close to the only apparent source of water and shifting with the seasons. The canals, he hypothesized, ended in 63 oases, collection and transfer stations 120 to 150 miles wide. In later years, he predicted the existence of a ninth planet in the solar system. Though Lowell never saw Pluto, his pioneering work led to a successful search for it. And yes, this game is from 1991, when Pluto was considered a planet and not a dwarf planet. I mean, technically Pluto is still a planet. And by creating the dwarf planet class, we actually gained more than 9 planets. But yeah, R.I.P. Pluto. Georges Méliès, 1861 to 1938. A French magician, theatrical producer, and actor, Méliès achieved worldwide fame at the turn of the century as the most innovative and adventurous of the early motion picture makers. His 1902 film, A Trip to the Moon, was remarkably similar in some ways to our own real-life adventure on Mars. One has to wonder whether he was inspired by the events of 1893-1895. Millier's experience in the area of things photographic proved invaluable on Mars. Robert E. Peary, 1856 to 1920. Peary, an American explorer, is best known for his trek to the North Pole. He entered the United States Navy in 1881, first traveled into the interior of Greenland in 1886, and reached the North Pole in 1909. Shortly after being stranded on the Red Planet, Peary embarked on an expedition to its northern polar region. His discoveries there marked a turning point in events on Mars. Grigory Yefimovich Rasputin, 1871 to 1916. At the time of our Martian adventure, Rasputin, Russia's mad monk, Rasputin. Sorry, I had to put another song in Alexei's head. Russia's mad monk was a wandering holy man and mystic yet to make his mark on the world. He is said to have possessed mystical powers of persuasion, particularly over women. Alexandra, wife of Tsar Nicholas II, fell under his spell. And through her, Rasputin influenced the Tsar himself. Often blamed for the conditions which led to the Russian Revolution, he was ultimately assassinated by conservative forces in Russia. The story of his execution is a strange one. Legend has it that he was poisoned, stabbed, shot, and then thrown into a hole in an ice-covered river, where he finally drowned. Tales of his psychic powers take on greater, more frightening significance in light of events on Mars. There may be more truth to the tales than modern men care to admit. Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen on Mars, indeed. Wandering holy man and mystic is an interesting, although not unique, way to say con man. Theodore Roosevelt, 1858 to 1919. Teddy Roosevelt, or TR as he was known, served in the New York State Assembly, spent 2 years as a rancher in the Dakota Territories, became police commissioner of New York City, acted as assistant secretary of the Navy, organized the Rough Riders cavalry troop to fight in the Spanish-American War, and served as New York's governor. In 1900, he was the vice presidential candidate on a ticket with William McKinley, and when McKinley fell to an assassin's bullet, ascended to the presidency, serving from 1901 to 1909. Roosevelt's police experience and familiarity with the latest developments in forensic technique proved invaluable during the Martian adventure. We're nearing the end of the list of notables. Louis Comfort Tiffany, 1848 to 1933. Louis Tiffany, son of renowned jeweler Charles L. Tiffany, began as a painter in oil and watercolors, but eventually found his true calling in the design of decorative objects made of iridescent Favril, or Tiffany glass. He also worked extensively as an interior designer, co-founding one of the leading design consortia in the United States. Among his noteworthy interiors were the White House and the home of Samuel Clemens. See Mark Twain, page 23. Little Blue Boxes on Mars. Mark Twain, 1835 to 1910. Gosh, he looks so much... I see this picture and all I see is the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, and it just makes me think of how well they did costuming the guy who played Mark Twain on Star Trek The Next Generation. Pen name of American writer Samuel Langhorne Clemens. After years as a printer's apprentice, a riverboat pilot, and a journalist, Clemens turned to fiction. Writing under the name Mark Twain, he penned such enduring classics as The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, 1876, The Prince and the Pauper, 1882, Huckleberry Finn, 1884, and A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, 1889. H.G. Wells, which I cannot think about H.G. Wells without thinking of Warehouse 13, and I loved their take on H.G. Wells. And forever in my brain, H.G. Wells is a woman because of Warehouse 13. But anyway, H.G. Wells, 1866 to 1946, renowned British writer whose work included such seminal science fiction tales as The Time Machine, 1895, and The War of the Worlds, 1898, the latter almost certainly inspired by his experiences on Mars. He also penned such popular nonfiction works as The Outline of History, which encompassed all of Earth's history from the dawn of time. Suggested reading. This game manual has a suggested reading list. Many of the characters, locations, and events in Martian Dreams are based on fact. In researching the Victorian era, the game's writers and designers consulted a great many books and magazines. Of these, 4 were particularly important to the initial conception and design of Martian Dreams: Jeff Roven's Survey of Mankind's Beliefs About Mars, Keith Farrell's biography of H.G. Wells, Margaret Cheney's study of Nikola Tesla, and R. Reed Badger's History of the Columbian Exposition. Among the works consulted were the following: Asher and Adams' Pictorial Album of American Industry, 1876. R. Reed Badger, The Great American Fair, The World's Columbian Exposition, and American Culture. Edward S. Barnard, Story of the Great American West. Jürgen Blunk, Mars and Its Satellites. Ezra Bowen, This Fabulous Century, 1870 to 1900. Glenn Boyer, The Suppressed Murder of Wyatt Earp. Carl W. Bryhan, Great Lawman of the West. Buffalo Bill and the Wild West from the Brooklyn Museum. Margaret Cheney, Tesla, Man Out of Time. Ronald William Clark, Lenin. Brad Derrick and Steve Petranek, Mars, article in Life magazine. William M. Bowden, Sarah Bernhardt. Everett H. Emerson, The Authentic Mark Twain. Keith Farrell, H.G. Wells, First Citizen of the Future. Warren Forma, They Were Ragtime. Sigmund Freud, On Dreams. Joseph T. Furman, Rasputin, A Life. Calvin S. Hall, A Primer of Freudian Psychology. Rackham Holt, George Washington Carver. Carrie Mark Joles, The Mars One Crew Manual. Oh, the Mars One Crew Manual, I'm guessing. Anyway, Matthew Josephson, Edison, A Biography. John F. Casson, Amusing the Million. Robert Koch, Louis C. Tiffany, Rebel in Glass. Frank Miles and Nicholas Booth, editors. Race to Mars, the ITN Mars Flight Atlas. Dennis Overby, The Mystique of Mars, from Discover Magazine. Robert William Reed, Marie Curie. Mignon Rittenhouse, The Amazing Nellie Bly. Nicholas Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, The Man as I Knew Him. Robert Routledge, Discoveries and Inventions of the 19th Century. Jeff Roven, Mars! The Story of Nellie Bly, from American Flange and Manufacturing Company Incorporated. W.A. Swanberg, Citizen Hearst. David Thompson, A Biographical Dictionary of Film. Mark Washburn, Mars at Last. Frank Waters, The Earp Brothers of Tombstone. John Edward Weems, Peary, The Explorer and the Man. Bernard Weisberger, Reaching for Empire. There's a freaking like bibliography / reading list for this game. Amazing. Director Jeff George, creative director Richard Garriott. Thank you so much for bringing the entire Ultima series into existence. Programming Mike McShaffrey, Paul Meyer, Bob Quinlan, Ultimate Game System, Cheryl Chen, John Miles, Herman Miller, Gary Scott Smith. World building, Philip Brogdon. The world building, just from looking at the manuals. Amazing. Amazing. Dialogue, Beth Miller, Raymond Benson, Steve Cantrell, Manda D, and Paul Meyer. Computer art, Jeff D, Keith Burdak, Daniel Bourbonnais, Manda D, Carl Dollinger. Musical score, The Fat Man, George Alistair Sanger, Dana Glover, Tom Hollingshead. Also, we've been listening to the Martian Dreams medley the whole time. Sound effects, Mark Shafton, quality assurance, Scott Shelton, Scott Hazel, Lyle McKay, Ben Potter, Kevin Potter, Bob Shelton, Jeff Shelton, Mark Vidic. Cover painting, gorgeous, Dennis Lubay. Manuals, Warren Spector. Very well done. Manual art, Jeff D, Carl Dollinger, Manda D. Reference card and install guide, Andrew Morris. Map art, Jeff D and Keith Burdak. Package and manual design, Cheryl Neild and Craig Miller. Executive producer, Dallas Snell, and producer, Warren Spector. Keith Burdak did the art that the Zebra Tour poster. Yes. Oh yeah. On the Avatar's wall in Ultima 6 is based on. We looked that up before. Like I said, this game really is one of the reasons that I love science fiction. It's just so good. Well, speaking of this game that is so good, how about we actually look at the game? I'm going to turn off the medley and actually open the game application. And we're only like 2.5 hours in, but we've looked at the manuals, which I don't think I ever like spent that much time going through them as a kid. I flipped through them. I'm glad I looked at them today. Okay, you should be able to hear the game. Yeah. I'm so excited. Books are considered as... yes, the books are definitely part of the game experience. The books are written in world for the game. I also... The clue book is also written in world for the game, but since it's kind of a walkthrough, I'm not looking at it yet. It's the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. Percival Lowell's Space Cannon to Mars. Fires tomorrow, 6 p.m. At the Columbian Exposition of 1893, astronomer Percival Lowell... Uh-oh. It went too fast. Before the greatest minds of his day, he proposed a mission to Mars. Commented on your post on Facebook. Oh, this one gave me plenty of time to read it. That's not good, but disaster struck. It's not tomorrow at 6. The cannon discharged a day early. So good. With the leaders of the Victorian era on board. Now you must rescue them from the Red Planet. Martian Dreams. I'm gonna watch it again. Oh, run introduction. Okay, come in. Dr. Spectre, hello. What can I do for you? Did you not send for me? I received a telegram urging me to come. I never sent you any telegram. Perhaps your friend can explain this? Friend? I came alone. Greetings, Avatar, Dr. Spectre. I have something you will find most interesting. Papers, a map, and a book about the orb of the moons. You must hurry. The greatest minds of your world and my own depend upon you. Well then, let's see what we have to work with. Doctor, that's you and me with Sigmund Freud. This picture must be 100 years old. The man on the left is Nikola Tesla, the inventor. What can all this mean? I'm not sure, Doctor, but I suggest we follow the map and find out. What if we just stay home and play Tetris on that desktop? The Ultima 6 poster was great, a great touch. Oh, and the evolution of the graphics. So the map was correct. Tesla did have a lab here. This is comparable to the King's Quest series at this point. How do we begin? The book says, you must face a heading of 37 degrees. Do you have the compass I gave you? Right here, Doctor. Now, toss the orb 8 feet in front of you. I wonder where it goes. If these instructions are correct, it leads to this same spot in 1895. Shall we, Doctor? It's so good! Are you not ready, Herr Tesla? Soon, Dr. Freud, soon. The electrical accelerators must be properly adjusted. My God! Spectre, the orb worked! We're here! Mr. Tesla, I'm Dr. Johann Spectre, and my friend is the Avatar. We've traveled quite some distance to bring you this message. It claims that you gentlemen come from the future to help us in our mission. They might be anarchists, here to subvert our expedition, using stage magic to impress us and cover their entrance. Whether they snuck in is easy enough to check, Mr. Garrett. Who's this and how'd they get in here? Since they did not come in past you, they must have arrived from the future. What? You believe this future nonsense? Simply because they managed to slip past your cowboy? Actually, Blood, the most compelling reason to believe them is this note. Oh, and just who wrote this compelling message? I did, Doctor, or I will. The signature, I assure you, is genuine. Perhaps you could tell us about the mission, Mr. Tesla? 2 years ago, Percival Lowell assembled a scientific team to explore Mars. But his team has not signaled Earth in over a year. Our purpose is to find out what happened to that expedition. And here is the final member of our team. Ms. Nellie Bly, meet Dr. Spectre and the Avatar, who will be joining us on the mission. I'm delighted to meet you both. A pleasure to meet you, Ms. Bly. Now, if everyone will take a place in the space bullet, it's time for our departure. Mr. Avatar, Dr. Spectre, if you have any further questions, I'll be happy to answer them when we arrive on Mars. Whew. Keeping up with that while reading out loud was somewhat difficult, but I know it was a lab full of spiders. Dr. Spectre. Wait, what? Are you sure he's not a Bond villain? Well, so Dr. Spectre seemed like a Bond villain in the prior game, but turned out not to be a bad guy. The pseudo-trek science-sounding language. Tesla just takes time travel for granted. Of course. Well, how about I create a character? It takes a few days to get to or from Mars, according to the game. Create character. As you stare out the porthole, your reverie is disturbed by a distinguished middle-aged man carrying a clipboard. He sits down next to you, studying you intensely. Good day. I am Sigmund Freud. I have been meeting the other travelers. So I may know you better, I was wondering if you would mind answering a few questions. Since we have not been properly introduced, may I ask how you wish to be addressed? On Mars, no one can ask you. On Mars, no one can hear you ask questions. Okay, I'm just going to Rogan for this game because, well, my avatar has been named Aokon for everything up to this point. I'm going with Rogan because I love this game so much. I want to play it. A pleasure, Rogan. I am continuing the research I began in Vienna prior to joining this expedition. Call me the Avatar. Everyone else does? Yeah. First, allow me to ask you this. With which of your parents do you most closely identify? Your A, father, or B, mother? This is more connected to the Avatar's real-world adventures than Britannia. I know this is character creation. And I believe that the answer here determines your character's gender in the character creator. Is that correct? I don't remember. Because I think if you choose father, your character is male, and if you choose mother, your character is female. Yeah? I cannot remember. You weren't satisfied with the outcome. I'm gonna go with A, even though personally I identify more with my mother, but hi, Kaden. Naturally, most men see themselves as more like their fathers, while they are closer to their mothers. In fact, they usually see their father as a rival for their mother's affection. That is, I don't know how. I was trying to go German, but a little bit of French mixed in there. Bad accents, sorry, whatever. Now, Rogan, lie back on your seat and get completely relaxed. Try to clear, I mean, that was a bit of Spanish there for a second. I'm not very good at the German accent, sorry. Try to clear your mind and respond as you think proper. Personally, I do not think that you belong with us on this expedition. Does this statement, A, anger you, B, frighten you, or C, neither? Because my opinion does not matter. Wow, rude. Did you miss the part where we are the Avatar? I'm going with C, neither, because your opinion doesn't matter. So you feel that this interview will serve no purpose. That is unfortunate, though it will not affect the outcome. This is like, in Ultima 4, 5, and 6, if you did character creation, rather than importing from prior game, there was a woman of the traveling folk who would do a tarot card reading and presented you with options, and that was how you created your character. This is the same mechanic, but Sigmund Freud. If you are ready, Rogan, we will begin. You are once again a child. Your mother calls you in away from play with your friends. Would you A, obey and go inside at once, or B, defy her wishes and remain with your friends? Where is C, negotiate for additional time? I'm gonna go with A, but really there needs to be a C, negotiate for additional time. When we arrive on the Martian surface, we will assuredly need to explore our surroundings. Do you think that we should A, send out one of us as a scout? I don't know. I keep getting Spanish or French instead of German. I'm just going to stop altogether. Do you think that we should A, send out one of us as a scout, or B, travel together as a group? Don't split the party. Assuming you could become an animal and live in the wilderness as you choose, which of these would you prefer to be? So, not what animal would you choose? Given this menu, which one would you choose? Would you rather become A, a fish and live in the sea, or B, a bird and live in the clouds? I assume everyone who has watched more than one stream of mine knows that the answer is bird. Bird, 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 bird. Bird is the word. You are definitely more comfortable with the feminine portion of your personality than with the male portion. Not entirely wrong. This is probably due to the influence of your mother during childhood. It's Freud. I thank you for your answers, Rogan. My research is proceeding well, and I hope to publish my findings someday. Rest assured that I will not mention you by name as an example. I didn't sign a disclosure form. I would like to first see the Institutional Review Board assessment of your study for, I want to know what the results of the Human Subjects Review Board were. And informed consent, you did not give me any information about the purpose of your study before asking me the questions, and I didn't sign off on you using them in any sort of research. Publish my findings about these random people I met on a Mars expedition. Bird means girl, of course, because men are fish. I know. Anyway, I have created the character. Shall we begin? I have 138 hit points. Oh, look. Apparently we are on Mars. And we look like the same blonde-haired, blue-eyed character that we were in Savage Empire. Strength of 21, Dex of 24, Intelligence of 22, hit points 138, hit point maximum 138. I'm currently level 4. I have 600 experience points. I have a pocket watch. It cannot be readied. But can I look? It's 8 a.m. Time is important. The girl character has a lime green dress. Awesome. Spectre. Spectre has a coat and gloves and boots and a scarf, and we're just tooling around naked? Nellie Bly, who has a derringer? It indeed is a derringer. This is a friendly reminder to the game that strict gender expectations and assumptions are actively harmful to cis and trans people alike. Indeed. And yeah, this game is from 1991. So it's not entirely surprising that it's not great. And it was Freud. Yeah, it's from 1990, and it's supposed to be replicating the views of the late 19th century. You see controls. I haven't saved. Use controls. Controls can't be used. Talk to Nellie Bly. You see a comely, well-mannered woman in her late 20s. This is where I suddenly remember I have the ability to take notes that I have enabled for myself. Nellie Bly. Well-mannered and armed with a derringer, no less. Ever since I did a paper on Nellie Bly for my history of journalism course many years ago, I've been sad that there don't seem to be any surviving recordings of her voice that I could find, because I've always wondered if she had a Pittsburgh accent given her history. Amazing. That is sad, though, that there's not recordings. I don't really have to. I'm gonna try and not write down everything this time. My dear Rogan, so nice to speak to you again. She puts aside her notebook and offers her hand. We get keywords. I'm gonna try and not like die, but I'm so excited. All right. Key words. Notebook and Elizabeth. I'm trying to put some organization in place. I don't know what'll happen. She puts aside her notebook and offers her hand. I am currently using my nom de plume of Nellie Bly, although my given name is Elizabeth Cochran. I have been dutifully recording any details of our journey up to this point. I am certain that this will make an intriguing article for publication in the world. That is assuming we are able to return safely. I would wager that information you've learned is vital to secure our safe return to Earth and could become the basis for any articles I wish to write. Nellie writes quietly in her notebook as you take time to relay the information that you have learned during your travels. Thank you, Rogan. This is wonderful material, and it will prove useful, I feel. So she is our reporter person. She is our Jimmy Malone for this adventure. This font is surprisingly difficult to read at times. Although I believe Elizabeth Cochran to be a fine name, I decided to adopt the name Nellie Bly after hearing my editor at the Dispatch hum the Stephen Foster tune of the same name. I believe it fits me well. Oh, Stephen Foster is one of the most talented composers that I know. His works are very popular in Pittsburgh. Oh, look at the icon. I know it might be a little difficult, but the icon is Mars with 2 moons circling it. I also love that the conversation is moved to the center panel instead of being just in the lower right. It went at a normal speed on a 386. I know, it's ridiculously fast. I'll have to see if I can I should be able to edit the cycles for the DOSBox and hopefully slow that down for the future. I work for Mr. Joseph Pulitzer as a reporter for The World, which I feel to be the finest paper in print. Perhaps you have read some of my writings. I have written on the horrible conditions of the inmates of Blackwell's Island. I don't know that any of these keywords are going to be particularly impactful for the game, but noting them down anyway. I even had myself committed in order to gain first-hand experience of the poor soul's wretched existence. I do feel for Mr. Pulitzer, for he suffers terribly with his failing eyesight and insomnia. He has a heart for a good story and shares my enthusiasm for fiery, revealing form of journalism. Blackwell's Island Asylum for Women. It is a despicable place where the inmates are cruelly treated, and many women who are as sane as you or I must remain judged by incompetent doctors. I have an illustrated official Scrabble player's dictionary, and it had a sidebar on Nellie Bly too. Awesome. All right, so I did name, I did job. Home? Oh dear, I'm afraid that I can't help you with that. Perhaps perhaps the kind Dr. Spector or Mr. Tesla can be of assistance. I don't know why she suddenly got a southern accent, but all right. Ultimate games generally name, job, and in the past one it was tribe. And it was hometowns before. Nope. I'm guessing just name and job are going to be the default questions in this game. Cool. She's already in my party, so I needn't ask her to join. Thank you. Bye. Very well, Rogan. We can continue our conversation at a later time. All right, so that was Nellie Bly. We'll talk to Spectre. All right. Spectre. You see a lean, dark-bearded man with kindly eyes. Yes, Rogan? I am Dr. Johann Spectre, of course. Dr. Johann Spectre. I don't know what all we're going to want to be asking Dr. Spectre about, but, job. He grins to keep you out of trouble, Rogan. No, really, for now, I'll be content to be your assistant in your explorations. Mars? The hypothesis of the Victorian Age didn't seem... the hypotheses of the Victorian Age don't seem to correlate with our modern discoveries about the Red Planet, Rogan. We'll have to see if our science, or their intelligent guesswork, is more reliable. He grins and gestures you closer. Considering your history of travels to worlds with fantastic creatures and scientific mysteries, would you care to bet on the scientific reality of this particular Mars? I thought not, he chuckles. Asked about Nellie. A fascinating woman. Did you know she traveled around the world alone? And made it in less than the 80 days hypothesized in Jules Verne's book? She's pretty unique in this day and age. I forgot what it's called. The air substance. I was going to ask about the air substance, but I've forgotten what it's called. What was his name? Cooter McGee. Named it Oxium. I'm just going to ask about Oxium. Apparently, Spectre has nothing to tell me about Oxium right now. Cool. Home? Aeodon. He doesn't want to talk about Aeodon? Yes, we'll talk later. If you check your pocket watch, it might tell you the time is now 6:15 on Earth. Not sure the time on Mars. Thank you, Alexi. Man. You see a distinguished man with a probing stare. Wait, is this... This is Freud, isn't it? I think it is, but we shall have to ask him his name to find out. I need to set up a template so that I can do this faster. Stop probing us, Dr. Freud. I mean, we're on Mars. We have to expect to be probed a little. Guten Tag, Rogan. What may I do for you? I am Sigmund Freud. Just the elevation of the graphics between Savage Empire and this, the graphics have improved just between the previous game and this one. The eyes with the hat. He smiles and fishes a notebook from his pocket. I am currently studying dreams, for they are a good indication of the psychological structure and personality of the dreamer. He makes a note then says, yeah, they'll tell much about the person involved. For example, many people dream that they are being chased by something they cannot see. This usually indicates the individual is feeling oppressed by something or has a duty to perform that is in some way unpleasant to them. That is my chosen profession. It is psychology, which has been the goal beckoning me from afar. I have begun work on theories of the structure of personalities. Yeah, my goal is to infer or to guess how the mental apparatus... I know how to say that word. Yeah, my goal is to infer or to guess how the mental apparatus is constructed and what forces interplay and counteract in it. I believe that it is comprised of three components: the id, the ego, and the superego. Yes. You get to ask Freud about the id, the ego, and the superego within moments of starting the game. It is the mechanism for the release of tension that is brought about by a stimulus. All right, the ego. It is the means by which one deals with reality and one's external environment. The superego. I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't spell it right. The superego. This is the portion of the personality that defines one's morals. join me? 9. I cannot. I have too many notes to transcribe. Notes? The superego has a cape and X-ray vision. I am working on a book and do not wish to forget details that may be relevant. Book? Yeah, I will call it The Interpretation of Dreams. So, Freud won't join my party, but maybe when we find the dream machines. Goodbye. Feel free to discuss your concerns or your dreams with me at any time. Yeah, so dreams is going to be an important keyword for Freud. In future. Who are you? Man in white. Oh, it's Nikola Tesla. Excellent. Let's... Nikola... Tesla. I'm so happy I'm on Mars. All right, you see a good-looking, dark young man with an intense stare. Come, my friend, we have landed. Let us see how close my calculations were for our landing site. He moves toward the door of the capsule. Good, good. My calculations were precise as usual. We are not far from the site of the 1893 landing. It should be just east of here, within easy walking distance. The others may have important information you can use on your journey. It would be wise to speak with everyone before exiting the capsule. I would also check with Mr. Garrett for some utensil with which to pry open the door of the capsule. It seems to be jammed closed. Wait, I guess that is a quest. Talk to Mr. Garrett for a utensil to pry open the door of the capsule. Utensil being a keyword that we'll want to use when we talk to Mr. Garrett. Cool. Quest. Find crowbar. Kind of, yeah. Name. Tesla. Nikola Tesla. Fine Serbian name. He smiles companionably. It will be my job to monitor the communications from Earth through the giant reflectors. All right. Communications? Communication must be maintained with the Earth to prove that my mission is a success. I will take care of it personally to guarantee its accuracy. Communications are achieved through the means of light reflection by huge mirrored surfaces. We will set them up if they are needed, and I will monitor them personally to ensure emergency communications. Oh, apparently I cannot use the number pad. I tried. It didn't work. Indeed. It is of paramount importance that you find the landing site of the earlier expedition. The sextant we brought should help immensely. I'm gonna say quest. Get sextant. Uh-huh. Yes. I asked about utensil. Yes, we may have need of some during our travels. You should ask Mr. Garrett what we have available. Door? I have tried the door, yes. It seems to be jammed. Please do ask Mr. Garrett specifically for something with which to open the hatch. Capsule. Indeed, it has worked even better than I expected. It is rewarding to see my theories proven correct. There should be a sextant in the hold. From the hold. Da, 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 da. If you learn the coordinates of a place you wish to go, the sextant will lead you there. The location for a place should be calculable using the sextant. It will give you a set of 2 numbers, which you can then use to find the spot later again later. The coordinates for the earlier landing site, for example, are 28 south, 153 west. Locations. 1893 expedition landing site. 28 south, 153 west. All right. That's all the keywords I currently have for you, Mr. Tesla. Certainly, my friend. We are both busy. We will speak again later. There's an organ? He's a pipe organ. Oh gosh. I need notes. Where are my notes from Ultima? Because I have the sequence. You knew exactly what I was going for. I just couldn't off the brain of my time and yeah. I know I wrote it down though. I thought I put it in my notes document. Whatever. Okay. I have the rhythm very wrong, but I wanted to play stones, and I don't remember the rhythm off the top of my head, but yeah. Anyway, you can play the pipe organ. Oxygenated air machine. There's blood. Wild Bill Hickok. Hilcock. Spectre. Nellie moved to the thing. Closed hatch. The steamer trunk. I can look through the closed hatch. Tesla's reflector kit. Wooden crates. There's so much. But we're like at the time. Oh, okay. Ooh. This is You see a backpack. Searching here, you find 5 cans of lamp oil, a tinderbox, a hatchet, a ball-peen hammer, a machete, a folded tent, and a lantern. I feel like I should get these things. Oops. Because seems useful. We'll ready a machete. That's lamp oil. Tinderbox. Lantern. Just gonna stick some things in the backpack here, since having them is great, but I don't need to carry them right now. Oh, so cool. A carpet bag? Searching here, you find tongs, a wrench, pliers, and a sledgehammer. If I know anything about carpet bags, it's that it can hold a heck of a lot more than that. The things you learn from Mary Poppins. Carpet bags can hold just about anything. Sure, we'll give the carpet bag to Nellie Bly. I don't see why we wouldn't carry it, but... Sealed wooden crate. Uh-huh. Use? It's nailed shut. A lady's silk gloves, a pith helmet, a silk scarf, a woman's shoes, a dress, or sorry, a cape, and a wool dress. I don't think it matters. I'm sure I could put them on. But we'll have Nellie pick them up. Those are silk gloves. Those are cotton work gloves. The work gloves are definitely going to be more useful. Got a hat, scarf, got some boots, got a cape. Definitely useful. I don't see why we need the extra clothes, but for now... Cool. I really should stop. Use? Can't use the reflector kit. Sextant. Spyglass. Get. 6 cans of lamp oil. 10 cans of lamp oil. 10 cans of lamp oil. A lantern and a lantern. I don't need to carry all that around with me right now, do I? A knife, a knife, a knife, a knife, a knife, a machete, and a saber. I will take the saber for sure. Johan, grab a machete and a knife. I have a knife. Sure. This is... I'm so happy. Work gloves, a pith helmet, a muffler, a man's shoes, a wool overcoat, and wool pants. Necessary. Get me things so I'm not naked no more. Johan, what do you have? A knife. I have a knife. I'm no longer naked. I feel like I have prepared myself to excursionate onto the Martian surface, except that I have no oxygen. A candlestick, a mug, a place setting, and a place setting. a crystal glass, a fine china plate, a glass pitcher, a wine bottle, and a wine bottle. I don't think I need any of that. What I need is a crowbar to get these boxes that are nailed shut open, which is, of course, why we're going to have to talk to what's his name about, because if we get a way to pry open the outer door, we'll get something for prying open those crates too. Perfect for carrying around the rugged landscapes of Mars. I really should stop. We're on Mars. And there's a pipe organ in the bullet ship that launched us here with famous figures from history. I'm going to save, because this is where we will pick up next Saturday for more adventures on the Red Planet in the Victorian era that never was. I'm so happy! I'm so happy that I get to play the game. It took 3 years to get here, playing through the entire Ultima series, to come back to a game that I started as a kid and never finished. And I am so happy that I get to play it. But we're gonna have to end today. Tomorrow I will be live at 1 p.m. Eastern for a continuation of Mass Effect Andromeda. Monday, we're still in the DLC for Outer Wilds. It's still amazing. I don't know when it will be done, but oh, it's so good. Oh gosh, and Bree just popped in. Oh, hello, Raiders. We were just starting the credits to say goodnight. But welcome, everybody from the brigade. Welcome in. Let me make sure there's a shout. If anybody here is not following Bree, you should follow Bree. We raid Bree quite often. And Bree is an amazing artist. Bree did a number of the art assets for the stream. And thank you for trusting the brigade with me. We're actually in the process of ending the stream for today. I was just doing my list of what's coming up. Today was just the tip, just getting into Ultima Worlds of Adventure 2 Martian Dreams. It is a game from 1991 where, full of Victorian trappings, you're launched on a projectile ship to Mars in order to save historic figures of the late 1800s. And it is, I'm so excited to play it. I have been working my way to this game for 3 years. And today we started it. I will continue with Martian Dreams next Saturday. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, is Mass Effect Andromeda. Monday, Outer Wilds. Coming up on Wednesday, for Archival Adventures, we're looking at some papers about Buckminster Fuller's World Game, which is kind of like the UN, but for economics. And so we got some really interesting papers regarding that. And yeah, I think, Puddleglum, thank you for the suggestion. I believe we are going to be going to, there was a charity thing. Hang on. Nope. Yes, we are going to be going to Desert Bus for Hope, raising money for Child's Play. So that's where we're going to be raiding today, is Desert Bus for Hope. And I encourage you all to join me on the raid. We'll be back for more Martian Dreams next Saturday. I should say thank you so much, Puddleglum, for the resubscription. Thank you, of course, to my moderators for joining me. Thank you, Bree, for the raid. And Galara, thanks for popping in, hanging out. Thank you, everybody who joined me today. I had a blast. We just barely touched the surface of actually playing the game, but I have so many good memories of this game that I never finished, and I am so excited to be playing it. I'm so happy. All right, we are gonna raid Desert Bus for Hope. I do have a raid call if you want to drop it when we get over there. It is #RogueRaid. Comes in both subscriber and non-subscriber flavors if you care to copy and paste. But yeah, we're gonna pop on over to this stream where they're playing what has been called the worst video game ever, and they continue to play it as long as donations keep coming in. So that's where we're gonna go. Thank you, as I said, so much for joining me today. Let me actually set up the raid here, and hopefully I will see all of you again soon. Until I do, get out there and do some shenanigans.